What are you seeing in terms of cap rates or just the type of yield that buyers are kind of solving for today?
Cap rates on value add stuff is so hard to put in there. So you're almost looking more at yield on cost, I guess, is what I would say. But I mean, because we've sold, I think the lowest cap rate I've ever sold, which makes no sense from like, you wouldn't buy it based on this cap rate. But I think I've sold like 2 caps before, but it's because rents were low, whatever. That was like the going in cap rate. But I think just as an overall, if it was a stabilized deal, sub-institutional, you're it's a big range, but it depends on location, all the normal factors that everybody would look at. I think you're anywhere from, for like really nice product in good locations, 6 on the low end of things, and then up to 8+, depending on where you are. If it's a little bit rougher area that demands a higher cap, that's kind of where it would be. And I think on a value add, if you're looking for yield on cost, like I think people are wanting to get to like at least over 8, on a yield on cost on most deals that we see. But it also goes like that sub-institutional space is a little bit of a tricky spot from a debt perspective, because you're dealing with a lot of local or regional like banks, and rates are, 7 if you're lucky, 7.25 if you're kind of lucky.
I think today they've gone up recently. So I think today you're in the high 7s if you're with a local bank.
Yeah, there's been relationships like help you get down. So like we've seen some people get 7.25 recently, but if you just go to a bank, especially if you're like an out of town guy coming in, like you're going to get quoted 8% probably for sure. But so that's a high interest. You got negative leverage going in usually right away. And then it's some of those deals are either not stabilized enough to get into agency, or they're too small and it just doesn't make sense. So that's the hard part of that sub-institutional space for me is finding the right debt for that. And like Freddie Mac, small balance is a really great program, but you kind of have to have a stabilized deal, or you got to be able to fund, improvements out of pocket. So that's the tricky part in that sub-institutional space, is finding the right debt product to help. And that's why I think cap rates in that space are elevated compared to more like institutional stuff, where you can get more stabilized and agency debt that works. So
the debt comment is, I think, extremely important because to give you an example, we're under contract on 2 deals. On one, our rate's 7.2. We're closing in about a week and a half because of the relationship,
Gotcha.
like you mentioned. On the other, our rate's going to be 7.5. But the quotes we were getting from banks were anywhere from like that 7.2 to 8, maybe even slightly over 8.
Yeah.
It's all relationships.
Yeah.
But then also every bank is all over the place today.
Yeah.
It's not like the agencies where you more or less know what you're going to get.
Right.